single entity trying to control the entire market is what we call it as monopoly here. Now, in a perfectly competitive market, we believe that the firms will produce the homogeneous kinds of products. So everybody is selling a same kind of product. In a monopoly firm, the marginal revenue must be equal to marginal cost, which means the revenue that is being generated should match up here. If the price determined is way above the average price, so automatically everything else will start becoming a higher side altogether. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 3 BCom Business Analysis, where we're going to speak about market structure. Now, it is quite important for all of us to understand about the market structure. Why? Because it refers to the arrangements through which we bring the buyers and sellers together. Now, whenever we talk about the word market structure, it means a complete region where the buyers and sellers are ready to come, sell their product and gain over a particular price. Now, the price determines the market structure, so it is very, very important for all of us to understand whether the markets will continue or will tend to retain at the same level. Now, whether a firm can be regarded competitive or it depends on the number of firms or an industry, the degree of rivalry, the degree of homogeneity of the product, economies of the scale. So many factors are going to come into picture. So as a student of economics, what we need to understand here is that market is a quite complicated factor which has got several number of firms, competition coming into picture, and then we have got a lot of sellers and buyers with different kinds of products. To understand this whole dimension is what the market structure is all about. Now, as we move further, we also need to talk about one of the most important characteristics of the market. And what are the kind of characteristics that we are going to talk about is the monopoly, duopoly, oligopoly, and we are also going to talk about monopolistic competition. So in this unit, what we are going to aim here is that we are going to aim to explore the features of a perfectly competitive market, equilibrium of the industry, how it is going to come under the forms of the market here. Now, as we move further, the first thing is what we're going to learn here is the perfectly competitive market. We all know that the industry is a highly fragmented sector. It consists of large number of buyers and sellers. Each of the purchases are so small that it's almost the imperceptible part of it. I mean, we do not even know how much is going to be the share there and what are going to be the factors that are going to come into picture there. So it is very, very important for each one of us to understand that each seller is so small in comparison to the market demand that it does not affect the market. In addition, each seller's input purchaser is also so small that they have a negligible input on the input prices. Now, the factor that we are going to speak about here is that not by a single seller or by a buyer the market will get completely affected. The market runs on a collection of buyers and sellers, and each one of them will have their own price, will have their own factors under which the entire setup would be decided upon. But what is very, very important for each one of us here to understand is that we are a part of a system that will actually try to understand the market factors from all the possibility, from all the beneficiary levels altogether. So whenever we are talking about market, we also are going to talk about the most important factor called as the supply and demand, which is going to come into picture. And as per the prices that we are going to decide upon, how the prices are working and how the prices are going, based on that is going to be the market demand factor. Now, in a perfectly competitive market, we believe that the firms will produce the homogeneous kinds of products. So everybody is selling a same kind of product. The consumers will perceive the products to be at the same level. The product of the firm A is not differentiated from firm B. So a same kind of product, the same kind of market, everybody is trying to sell a same kind of factor here. So there is perfect knowledge of information among the firm and consumers. This is very, very important. The firms will have a total knowledge of any improvement in terms of technology or the manufacturing process, while the consumers will be fully aware of what is happening in the market. So this is very, very important for all of us to understand here. Now, followed by which the industry is also characterized by equal access to all the resources. So that is also very, very important for us to understand. All firms, those currently in the industry as well as the prospective entrants, have an access to the same technology and to the input factor. So that's also very important here. The firms can hire inputs such as the land, labor, capital factors, materials that they have used in them, and they can also release from them the employment whenever they do not want. So at the same point of time, we are also talking about factors where we can see that if they don't want the labor to continue, they can release it out. So it's an equal market. We are talking about equal opportunities. Buyers and sellers can participate at their own level. They don't have to worry about the market competition. They don't have to worry about the barriers. They don't have to worry about anything that comes in between. It's a market that is completely free. The market is completely trying to understand everything on its own, and it's a very, very composite market altogether. Now let's try to understand the word called as no barriers to entry. This is very, very important. Why? Because nothing hinders the market here. That means to say that nobody has to worry about the entry factor. Anybody can just walk in and walk out. So the market gives a complete freedom in terms of entry, and the market gives a complete factor saying that there is no way to stop you. You have a product, you have a common product, you are welcome to be a part of the market. You can anytime join the market and you can take it forward. So that's exactly what we mean by saying that the complete accessibility to the market here. Now the next one, in the long run, the perfectly competitive market firm's equilibrium occurs at a price at where the supply will equal to the demand, and the firms will have no incentives in terms of entry or exit from an industry perspective. So more specifically, a long run equilibrium that has been raised by the market, where you see an identical number of firms with the price P factor and N factor. Each firm will try to maximize their profit. So everybody will try to sell the same product at a maximum price so that they are able to maximize the profit, and the plant is also able to maximize by minimizing the cost of production. So there you would see an equation coming here. P is equal to MC into Q factor. So higher the quantity, higher the price, we are going to make a greater profit. So it's a typically an idealistic kind of market, which I would like to stay, where all the people would come and sell the products at the given level and continue to remain in the market at the same factor. Now, coming back, let's try to understand the long run price and output of a perfectly competitive firm. Each of the firm's economic profit is zero. So given the price factor, a prospective entrants cannot enter and cannot earn the positive economic returns just by entering the industry. And the best part of the story here is that he cannot also earn a negative return. So what applies here is that moment a person is allowed to enter into the market, he needs to start bringing in the equal amount of factor here. That means to say that the firm cost will be on the average price, and we will be trying to sell almost at the same price throughout the market. So the market demand will equal the market supply, and which now when the price equals the demand market supply, that means to say that we are equivalently talking about the number of firms that is divided into the quantity factor. So somewhere down the lane, the profit would be equally divided. Now that's the most important factor of a perfectly competitive firm. Now, as we move further, monopoly, and most of us know what is the meaning of monopoly. Monopoly means single dominance of an entity in this market. So a single entity trying to control the entire market is what we call it as monopoly here. Now, monopoly refers to a market situation where there is only one seller and one commodity. There are no close substitute at all, which means to say that market has got only one product and there's only one seller, and this guy will completely dominate the market. He will not allow anybody to come into the market. The market is into his complete command altogether. So that is why we bring in this monopoly as a very important factor of the market structure. Now, moving further, the single producer may be in the form of an individual owner or a simple partnership. But what makes it very, very interesting here is that he will have the full control over the supply of commodity. So he will have the power to decide the price of the commodity. He will be the person who will decide how the supply will happen in the market. He will be the only person who will think about this factor, saying that it has to be done in that particular way. Which means to say that now we need to understand that if a monopoly has to survive, if the monopoly has to continue, he will not allow any other person to come in. And at the same time, he will take over the supply chain completely. He will dominate over the pricing, and he will also hold the product until he wants to make profit. Now, moving further, the monopoly market situation is one where we have a single seller. So the first thing that we see here is that that single seller makes a difference. Nobody can even come closer to him, and there are no close substitute. This is very important. Imagine a market where you do not have substitute for the product that you are selling, which means to say that there cannot be an option given to the consumer in terms of buying anything else. The consumer has to come to you. The consumer has to buy the product and at the price which is being told by you. So you are not only controlling the price, you are also controlling the substitutes, and you are also controlling the profit that is being predetermined. So that's why monopoly becomes a very, very strong form of market where one person individually dominates it. The meaning of monopoly, one, as we were talking about, the control over price, because supply and other factors are there. No entry to any person whatsoever. So at any given point of time, nobody is going to enter into the market. Nobody is going to go outside the market, and everything is going to be dominated by that single person at any given point of time. So this is something really wonderful for all of us to understand here. So at any given point of time, we understand this factor very, very clearly, very comfortably on this factor that at any point of time, the no entry is given. So economically, technologically, every factor, it is being held completely. So that's where it becomes an obstacle factor. It is very difficult to break a market of this kind. Now, the meaning of monopoly, no difference between firm and industry. So one person is the firm, one person is the industry, and one person dominates everything out. So you cannot beat him out of the market at all. So that person holds everything in hands. Now, the equilibrium monopoly firm output decision, this is very important. Why? Because marginal revenue must be equal to the marginal cost. Yes, that's what we have been talking about. And we also talk about the total revenue cost approach that we are going to come into it, and marginal revenue and marginal cost approach. This is very, very important for all of us to understand at this junction. Why? Because whenever we are going to talk about this marginal cost, marginal revenue factors, this is a very, very important thing that one has to understand. You cannot go without it. In a monopoly firm, the marginal revenue must be equal to marginal cost, which means the revenue that is being generated should match up here. And the MC must cut the MR from the below. That means the marginal cost should go below the marginal revenue, and it should keep going up. The marginal revenue will keep on continuing going up. So total revenue and total cost will remain the same. That's exactly where we are going to come into picture. Now, what's going to happen at one point of time, the total cost will become almost zero, leading to the total revenue to the maximum, and that's where the monopoly will make the maximum profit. Marginal revenue, marginal cost approach also is important here. Now, monopolists can earn maximum profit between the difference of TR and TC being maximum. That means to say, if TC is almost equal to zero, I'm not saying zero for an example, then TR is equal to the maximum value. That means to say the total revenue goes up to such an extent that there is no stopping at all, and this guy would make the maximum money altogether. Now, the other thing is that marginal revenue and marginal cost approach, accordingly, what we're going to talk about here is that it is fulfilled by the factor that the study of equilibrium price, according to this analysis, needs to be conducted in a two-time period. So one is a short run, where you would start seeing that people are looking into it in terms of the short run factor that's coming and going. The monopolist cannot change the fixed factors. It will start working together in a short run period altogether. Similarly, you would also see that in the long run factor, monopolists can be able to increase the variable factor. So in this period, monopolists can enjoy a supernormal profit, which means to sustain all the loss before itself, this guy would have hiked up the prices to that level because there's nobody to challenge him. He will make the maximum profit and take out into supernormal. So that's where I say that if the price determined is way above the average price, so automatically everything else will start becoming a higher side altogether. The limit will be indicated by the equilibrium here. Now, definition of oligopoly, where there are few sellers, they dominate the market. So which means to say oligopoly market structure is between a pure monopoly and a monopolistic. Few sellers dominating it. Simple example is OPEC, where I would like to say OPEC consists of a group of nations trying to dominate the producing oil and petroleum factors. So that's how exactly an oligopoly comes into picture. Now, in this, what will happen is other market firms compared to that, the OPEC, that is the oligopoly, the cartel will decide the price of that product. So it becomes very difficult here to determine the equilibrium price and output of an oligopolistic firm. An oligopolistic firm cannot assume that its competitors will change their price or output. Why? Because it will be followed by the factors. They will keep in mind how things are moving, how we need to keep a track of it. So the price determination becomes quite difficult here. Followed by which, therefore, the demand curve for any product is not fixed like any other markets. Demand firm will keep changing and they will also keep changing the price. Now, let's take oil itself. Every day the demand factor changes. Every day the price will also change. So, therefore, the absence of fixed demand curve, it is difficult to determine the equilibrium price and the output factor. So, it's very important for all of us to understand how does the demand factor comes into picture. Now, the Carnot's model, which is very, very important. In 1838, a great economist named Augustin Carnot introduced a simple duopoly model where he said that duopoly means to say that two firms producing same kind of good, these two firms will now dominate the market. And now there will be no other firms here. So when they dominate the market, what's going to happen here is that they're not going to allow other people to come into it. So what is the first condition? Two firms produce homogeneous, indistinguishable, the same kind of product. There are no other firms in the market. So no way you're going to allow anybody to come into the market. And followed by which, the factor is collusive behavior is prohibited. That means we will not fight against each other. No competition. We will share the profit. Firms cannot act together to form a cartel. We are not forming a cartel. We'll just remain where we are. We will make our own profit. There exists only one market for the produced good. That means everybody will sell that product in that same market. So both of them will sell the same product at the price in the same market, and they're not allowing anybody else to come into the market. Now, the most important thing is oligopolies and the price output decision is something similar to that. Why? Because even in the Carnot model, you will try to understand here that understanding the determination, the price output determination becomes very difficult. Whereas in each of the firm will choose the quantity. The firms will make this choice simultaneously. So what happens in duopoly is that the first level game is in such a way that we decide the quantity, we decide the price. So based on this, the cost structure of the firms are returning to the public information. So this is how thing would start working in terms of the duopoly. Now, in the Carnot model, we also have a Kincaid curve demand analysis, which was developed by Paul Sweezy. And then on one hand, it was done by R.C. Hall and Hitch, who had the assumption. They had believed that there were few firms in an oligopolistic who had a closer amount of substitute. The quality of the product remains constant and the firms do not spend much of money on advertising, which means they remain together in the market. They try to hold the market together. They don't spend too much of money and they're not allowing firms to come inside. Now, the other thing is that the set of prices of the products has already been determined. Each firm believes that it will reduce the price of the product. They would simply keep the price at unchanged, which means to say that the firm reaction towards the price would be the same nominal thing. They are not changing anything here. They want the price to remain the same. They want people to follow the price. They would make the profit as per the given margins, and they are not allowing any other people to come into the market. Now, with that, I come to the end of today's session. I hope and believe that all the factors that have been spoken here would be of a great help to you, both in terms of theoretical as well as in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming sessions, we would be seeing more about cost analysis and other factors. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session. You have a great day ahead.